concerning forced vaccinations?
All right. Well, first, let's force is a bit pejorative, if you don't mind me saying so, Dr.
Yes,
Taylor,
mandatory. All right.
Let's put that aside.
Yes.
All right. So there's no law right now that bars putting in place a law or policy or directive to mandate vaccination. We're going to put it that way.
Yes.
There's no case decision to that effect, and so it is a little misleading to the public to say that it is not supported by our laws.
Mm-hmm.
All right? It is possible in a particular situation, in a free and democratic society, to put in place a provision that is justifiable and proportionate to allow for mandatory vaccination. You notice how carefully I put that. So it is not the case that it cannot happen. No, it can happen. So mark you, we have not come as an association to a final constitutional, constitutional position on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is not accurate to say right now that it is not allowed for in the law.
Okay.
And that is the point I'm wishing to make. And secondly, it is a little unfair.
So just a second. So in essence, what you're saying is, based on the status of the law right now, there is nothing that prevents an employer from saying that workers have to be vaccinated for the purposes of employment.
Correct.
Right. Similarly, is there anything that says that it was unlawful for the government to make such a mandate for the population on the whole?
There is nothing to say.
One way or the other?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. No?
Good. So,
and if I might just
please.
Out a little.
Mm-hmm.
An employer as a common law duty of care to his employee on the employer's liability and to ensure workplace safety.
Right.
Under the Labor Relations Code, I know I don't need to tell you this.
Absolutely.
More than me, but
yes.
On the Labor Relations Code, employees are supposed to cooperate with management
yes.
in the implementation of policies that
yes. Indeed, Alex, the code itself speaks, it reinforces the common law obligation of the employer to provide a safe and secure, of course, having to do with non-human threats, and secure have to do with, So it is pretty clear that the Labor Relations Code in the event is binding statute, certainly before the tribunal and other places. It's very, very persuasive.
Right.
So an employer has to do what is necessary to preserve the health of everybody else, including yes. All right.
So the next question is what is necessary.
All right.
So it may be that in a particular industry, workplace, what have you, mask and sanitizing and social distancing might not be enough.
Yes.
It might well be.
Yes.
And it may well be that in order for that employer to...
you're not going to be forgiven for saying social distancing on this web. You go physical distancing, Alex, please. Yes. We social sciences don't like it enough. I don't want to sleep on road.
Yes. Right. So there may well be... It may well be, and again, I'm using the hallowed words in constitutional law.
Yes.
It may well be justifiable and proportionate for an employer to say, in order to be employed to me or to continue in your employment, this is what you have to do. And the next principle I'd like us to hopefully agree on is that not all variations in a contract of employment amount to a constructive dismissal.
Aye. So maybe we need to rewind a little bit though here, so we can continue this educational process. Now, what you're saying is, because you raise a constitutional position, and in as much, and I'm speaking now as a layman, I hope everybody can understand this and tell me if I'm wrong, that insofar as basic constitutional rights go, there is no such thing as an absolute. So you'll have your individual rights, which are some of which are implied, but some of which are enshrined in the Charter of Rights.
I'm glad you raised that. There's a particular right
Yes.
that we seem to overlook a lot, and I'm going to read it to you.
Yes.
This comes from chapter 3.
Yes.
The right to enjoy a healthy and productive environment free from the threat of injury.
Aye.
In which I would include a communicable disease.
Absolutely. So, right. So the point, though, is where you have that individual right, it cannot be so absolute that it runs counter to the national or public interest or the rights of another individual.
Well, you sound like a lawyer now, man.
Actually, I went to school.
You're doing better than me.
I went to school too, you know. You forget, remember, I'm on the outside of the classroom now, I can't really know, I drink beer while you forget.
You should be president of that bar.
No, another bar maybe, right? But remember some of these conversations we had when we were at K-ville, by the way, with the great Professor Chaudhry, etc., right?
Yes.
These conversations, right?
Yes.
So, the point is, though, Alex, we can talk about individual rights and human rights and all those things, fine, and those things are sacrosanct. But it can't be so much that in exercising your right as an individual, you're going to run the risk of prejudicing the right or safety of everybody else. I get that. I understand that. You don't need to go to law school if you understand that. That's just plain human sense.
Thank you.
What I want to understand, though, is if you have a requirement, now this is between an employer and a worker, if you have a contract, and the contract is very clear as to some of the things that you are entitled to, as well as some of your obligations that you must carry out. If there is nothing in your contract that says that you should be forced to that you should take a vaccine in order to continue, isn't it possible that in the course of this contract, your employer comes to you and says, you now have to get vaccinated in order to have continued employment. Now, this was not something, Mark, it's a new phenomenon.
Yes.
And therefore, your employer tries to do what on the surface looks like a variation of the contract by saying, listen, you are going to have to take this vaccine right now.
The truth is, it's not even on the surface. It really is a variation. So the next thing is the employer allowed.
So tell us now, because
in continuous employment.
Yes.
Right? And seem to recall some English cases on the point. An employer can vary the terms and conditions of an employment contract. All right? Without it amounting to what is called a constructive dismissal. In other words, there are a whole host of things.
I know, but what's your opinion? What would be the opinion here, though? Because if the worker decides that, listen, this is something that substantially varies the contract to such an extent that it is tantamount to a repudiation.
Right.
It therefore would be a constructive dismissal. Whether as a matter of fact, I tell you, even the LRID has a section where it does imply that this could be constructive dismissal. So, is there any recourse, or could you say that, listen, given all of the circumstances, it really is not such a breach that you would call it a constructive dismissal? Because right now, in your view, yes.
If I might just use percentages, I'm pretty sure in 95% of the occasion, it could not amount to constructive dismissal. There may be narrow instances where it is a substantial repudiation by asking them to take the vaccine. I can't even think of any right now, to be frank with you. But I'm not going to say absolutely, because it is all going to depend on the workplace, the industry, the duties, the type of job that the employee is doing, you know. Okay, one pops into mind. Suppose the nature of your job is a remote one. You never have to come in contact with any other employee, right? Would it be reasonable for your employer to tell you, even though you work at home blah, blah, blah. That's the nature of the type of work. You must take a COVID test or you must take a vaccination.
Yeah.
In such a situation, it might be
right.
a substantial repudiation of contract.
Right. The COVID test. The COVID test. I think it doesn't seem to be grey law to me. I think it is pretty clear because the COVID test would fall within the larger mandate easily of protecting everybody else.
Right.
However, talking about doing something to your body that permanently, right? As according to your contract, are you saying to me, Alex, that if my employer says to me, if you do not take this vaccine, I'm going to dismiss you? Because if I don't take it, I can't be my contract will not be continued. Would not be
Brother, come back in a 5 minutes, I record something.
Seen as an unjustifiable dismissal.
Okay, you see,
come back in a 5 minutes, I record something.
Yes.
There are instances, I suppose, in which the imposition of this term might amount to a constructive dismissal. I'm not walking away from that, But let us not say that because it's a permanent change to your body, right? For that reason, say that it is a constructive dismissal, right? I mean, we do have mandatory vaccinations in this country for a number of other diseases, which we grew up with. You and I know we used to get the first jab or the second jab and so on and so forth under the Public Health Act.
Yes.
Right? So I don't know that because you're asked to take the vaccine and that leads to you having the antibodies in your body in and of itself means that you're constructively dismissed. Because again, the point is we're dealing with a pandemic. And it may well be, in order to control that pandemic in a particular instance and circumstance at the workplace, a mask, sanitizing, and physical distancing, and make sure to say the right thing here, would not be enough.
Yeah. What would you suggest, therefore, in terms of as an underground solution to an employer who wants to do all that is right, he wants to do what is legal, but he also wants to do what makes the best sense for his employees, as well as the nation and the environment within which he works?
Given that there is no law barring the mandating of vaccines, follow the labor relations code, follow your common law duties to protect your worker. Look at your situation, and I would dare say, touch base with your legal advisor. Look at your situation and ask yourself the question, is it reasonable and justifiable in your particular workplace to ask your workers to be vaccinated to continue their job function? That is the question. And once you have answered that question, you act accordingly.
Got you. I want to thank you, Alex Williams. I know it's, but I tell you, that's why it is law and not science. Right? Always have these gray areas. I'm sure that there are going to be persons with different perspectives as well, but good sense must prevail.
Yes,
Good sense must prevail. And for me, I've always preferred the conciliatory approach, as opposed to the one which you arbitrate or you litigate, because one side wins and the other side loses. So
let me say to you, the role of the Jamaican Bar Association is the watchdog for the administration of justice and the watchdog for the defending of the rights of the citizens. All right? So we are not here to tell government what their policy position is, but we are certainly here to say this is what we consider the law to be.
Yes, got you. Thank you, Alex Williams, and I hope that you will give the same stellar service to the Bar Association that you have given to the other areas that you have worked.
The many hats.
Yes. By the way, there's no compulsory, there's no drug testing or anything.
You asking the Jacko side of things?
No, drug testing. Yeah, to be part of Jambar, I don't know. Because between you and me, though, you know.
There's no drug.
Yeah, between you.
Have a mandatory vaccination policy to become a member of the Jamaican Bar Association.
There's none.
There's one right now.
No, I'm talking about that, though. But I'm also thinking, you see, bearing in mind the fact that you want to know that our attorneys, who are the guardians of our justice system, that they're operating with the best of minds, etc., that from time to time they get tested, you know, either by polygraphs or by these other things, so that they don't return an adverse analytical finding. Can you imagine an attorney going before a court and he's under the influence of some kind of a prohibited drug?
There you go.
Yes. Not really pulling a leg, and I really mean it, eh? But that's another story. Right. Bless you, Alex Williams. You take care, and we'll have other conversations.
Most definitely.
All right, take it easy. Good. That's Alexander Williams. I should call out all of his name. No, Alex, I'm not going to do that, by the way. And I said it's a disclaimer, though. It's is my personal brethren. We have been friends many years, since we were both teenagers in high school. But having made that disclaimer and disclosure, I want to say, though, that he's the president of the Bar Association right now, the new president of the Bar Association, and he's trying to give us some kind of clarity regarding mandatory vaccinations, or whether or not an employer can tell his workers to be vaccinated, you know. But let me take another call.